Hi, Mark Gilbert here. Thanks for clicking in on this video. For the next few minutes, we're going to talk about the golden rule and using it here in the 21st century. Specifically, I want to look at what is the golden rule, what is some of the barriers to us using or living by the golden rule, why would we actually want to do this, and then finally, some tips or guidance on actually employing the golden rule. Now, at the offset, I think most of us know what the golden rule is from the words. The words are do unto others as we would have them do unto us, or something similar. In fact, most religions have in their sacred text somewhere, or their sacred writings, some variation of the golden rule, some ethical standard or touchstone for people to use as they're interacting with other people. Now, this is only natural because as we live in groups, we want to maintain some degree of order and getting along. And the golden rule, and by employing the golden rule in our religions, has served the purpose of allowing there to be a degree of peacefulness among each of us. However, simply stated, the golden rule is treat others like you want to be treated. Now, sounds great, but immediately when we hear that, we can think of some barriers that come up in our minds as to why living by such an edict is going to be difficult for us. The first one that most of us think about is, what if other people don't treat me in the same way? That is, what if I treat you like I want you to treat me, but you treat me in a way that I don't want to be treated? Then I'm feeling like I'm being run over by you, that I'm being used by you. We can live by the golden rule and still have healthy boundaries and bear with other people. The second barrier that comes to mind is the fact that one of the things I've noticed recently, and I've talked about it in some other videos, is that there tends to be a degree of tribalness that's going on, a degree of people who live in their own individual groupings based on their worldviews. And sometimes when they get into their tribal nature, they can make judgments about other people and tend to group them into the other and treat them with less than the dignity and respect that you care for. If you see another group that you know has dissed you, you may feel a degree of difficulty in treating them as you wish to be treated because of the actions they've done in the past based on their tribal nature. It could very well be that this person, by the very fact that they are espousing a belief that is tied to a belief of a certain group, and others in the group have mistreated you, that this person doesn't get the benefit of the doubt because you've been treated or mistreated by others. The third barrier that often comes up is the anonymity of the internet and internet communications, and how sometimes it's difficult to treat others as we want to be treated if I don't really know who you are. If I don't see your face, all I see is some sort of, brief online name that you're using for your postings, and you've been rude to me, it's very easy for me to be rude right back to you. So this very nature of internet communications can also be a barrier for us living by the golden rule. So why is it that I'm recommending and considering that we should all live by the golden rule? Why am I saying that this is beneficial for us? Well, the first thing I would ask you to consider is this question. What kind of world do you want to live in? Variation of that is, what kind of world do you want to hand off to your children and your grandchildren? I know that when I look at the world out there, the experience that I would want to have is one where I'm treated with dignity and respect, where I have my base needs met, where I have the opportunity to thrive, where people aren't harming me, yet I'm free to express my creative abilities in a way that doesn't harm anyone else. Really speaks to the concept of creating a world that works for all. It's one of the visions I've talked about in another video of creating this world that allows all of us to not only survive, but to thrive at the highest levels, to expand and evolve into the highest expression of who we can be. And that brings me to another reason. I believe that this universe is interconnected. In fact, I feel and know that the more a person expands spiritually, the more they recognize the interplay of all of life. What that means that all people have at some base level, they're all connected. Yeah, we walk around in this dimension and we feel like we're separate and apart from one another, and we are each expressing our own individual lives, and that's good on that level of expression. But at the same time, as I grow and evolve, I recognize that at an underlying level, you and I are one. And if you and I are one, and I am causing you harm, then I'm causing myself harm. And vice versa, if you cause me harm, at some base level, you're causing yourself harm. And so it calls us to seek solutions that are win-win for both of us. And in fact, are win-win-win solutions where we both gain from the interaction and birth some newness that's good for the entire system of humanity and the planet itself. I know that sounds very visionary and very highfalutin, but it's something that we can all reach towards, that we can aspire. It's a vision that is worth working towards. All of this leads me to asking the ethical question in the moment when we are faced with a choice. How can I choose in a manner that is honoring the golden rule in the 21st century? How can I move beyond the limitations and barriers and challenges that we're faced with in modern times to see the oneness, to feel into that oneness, and to honor you in a way with my choices while still honoring myself, given the vast variety of humanity that lives and moves and has its being on this planet? This brings me to a quote that I want to read you from spiritual teacher Ernest Holmes, and one that's been a touchstone for me for many years. I'm going to read it just to get it correct. But Holmes wrote, in considering these questions and actions in a particular moment, he writes, "Does this thing I wish to do express more life, more happiness, more peace to myself, and at the same time harm no one? If it does, it is right. It is not selfish." One thing I want you to notice in that particular quote is that there are two parts to it. He is calling us to express ourselves in a way that calls us to express our life fully, that we bring more life into what we're doing, we bring more happiness into what we're doing, and we bring more peace to our inside, to our awareness, a peaceful nature. There is this sense of our expressing and feeling this life fully. But let's be honest, there's ways in which we can do that thing and bump into other people and cause harm to others. And so I have to also be mindful at the same time when I'm expressing myself and my creative abilities and bringing more happiness into my life, that I don't harm you. It's very important I consider the flip side. I can be considering you so much that I don't live my fullness as well. So what I'm seeking is a balance there, one that does not harm you, but also expresses myself fully. I've put the quote on the screen so that you can look at it. It's also in the remarks of the video. I think this touchstone is so vital for us to consider as a way of living the golden rule in the 21st century. But finally, that brings me to several tips that I would like to offer to you on how you can use the golden rule in your lives. Here's 3 things that I've learned that I think are beneficial in employing the golden rule and Holmes' quote in making decisions in my life. The first one is to recognize that in making my choices, I can still have healthy boundaries with other people. Yes, if I act in a manner that I treat you like I want to be treated, there's going to be certain circumstances where you treat me in a way that I don't want to be treated. And at certain times, that can be harmful to me. And I can take the appropriate steps in that moment to create healthy boundaries, removing myself from you or other things that keep me from allowing you to do me harm. So that's the first tip. The second is to recognize and be aware of when emotions are coming up in me and I'm going to perhaps reply in a way that's not in my greatest and highest good. Maybe I am going to attempt to cause harm to you out of the anger that I'm feeling in that moment. Maybe you've said something that was hurtful, or you've emailed me something that I disagreed with, or you've expressed a political opinion that I strongly disagree with. I've got a choice in that moment. In fact, I love the concept that Stephen Covey painted in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book many years ago, where he encouraged us to be proactive and not reactive. And what he meant by that was recognizing that when we're faced with a circumstance that we immediately react to, that we can build a time gap in there, a gap of time where we can consciously choose our reaction. And what I'm encouraging you to do is to consider developing that time so that you're aware of your emotions, and when you're going to reply out of anger or other emotions and do something that might be harmful. And instead, to build that gap of time in there, to take a breath and consciously choose what is the best and highest response in this particular moment. Sometimes just taking that pause will help you. The other thing is to remember, and this is the third tip, that when somebody says something to you that hurts you or makes you angry, you don't have to reply. I've learned this through many years of being on social media and the internet and having written a lot, and I attract people who don't believe what I believe, and that's okay. That's okay. I like that on some level, but what I don't enjoy necessarily is when their reaction to what I'm saying or teaching is something that they so disagree with that they feel like they have to lash out and attack me. I've had plenty of it. And yes, sometimes it's hurtful, and sometimes we don't want to read those comments. And sometimes we may have to take appropriate barrier steps. But the best step that I've learned is that if I've tried to engage the person and I can see that they're simply out for attack, then to recognize I don't have to reply to them. I do not have to devote any energy to that particular individual. I can turn away. I can let them have their statement and not respond to it. So those are 3 tips that I think have been helpful to me. Finally, I want you to consider 3 steps that you can take that will allow you to live a life employing the golden rule more fully in your life. What are those 3 steps? The first step is to set the intention, to know that's something that you want to create. Know that you want to create a world that works for all, and that it employs all of us acting by Holmes' quote in our selections or living by the golden rule. Setting that intention, backing it up with continuing to shift your thinking whenever you feel like it's not in alignment with the golden rule. Use affirmations or affirmative prayer or other positive thinking techniques that I've covered in some of my other videos to develop setting that intention that each day I am going to live fully and do no harm. Each day I'm going to treat others as I wish to be treated. Have some affirmation that sets the intention for the day, that sets you in motion on moving in that direction. The second step is to be conscious. Be conscious of when those emotions are coming up. Be conscious of when your buttons are being pushed. The more you can be conscious of who you are, the more you can be conscious in making a conscious choice in how to react in that moment and do it in a proactive manner rather than a reactive way. And the third step, it's to be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself when you mess up. Because as much as you can have the intention and be conscious, there are going to be those moments that somebody cuts you off on the freeway and you're going to throw a hand gesture at them, or you're going to be insulted, or somebody is going to say something that is going to tick you off and you're going to reply without thinking. You're only human. Yeah, you're spiritual too, but you're human. And because that humanness reacts in an energetic and emotional way in certain circumstances, there's going to be times that you may not treat the other person as you wish to be treated. And so when that happens, acknowledge it. Be kind to yourself. Recognize that it occurred and set the intention to be better the next time. Learn what you need to from that particular encounter. In conclusion, living in the 21st century by the golden rule, treating others as we want to be treated, living our lives fully with joy and peace in our hearts, but doing no harm to others, living in such a manner and moving into that place can create a world that works for all. but it begins by us taking action individually, with you and with me, taking the commitment to start today to create that world. What do you think? Leave me a comment, and like I've mentioned before, if you've got a question or something you'd like me to film a video on, drop me an email. The address is on the screen. Thanks for viewing. Till next time. Hey, one more quick thing. I'd love it if you subscribe to the channel. The link is down there on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Also, there's a related video you might want to watch. It's right next to my face. And if you like this video, be sure to click like and leave me a comment on YouTube. Thanks.